Hello, Whovians and subscribers, and welcome to my latest review. So continuing with Series 9, we are now on the Zygon Invasion / the Zygon Inversion, the two-part Zygon story in Series 9 of the new series of Doctor Who, starring Peter Capaldi as the 12th Doctor. A long time ago, the Doctor made a deal in the Tower of London. 20 million Zygons walk among us in human form, living undetected in peace and harmony. But cracks are showing in this delicate peace. Humans and Zygons are disappearing. In the city apartment blocks, lifts are going missing, and far below the streets of Britain, alien pods are growing in secret caverns. To top it all off, UNIT's scientific advisor Osgood sends a desperate message to the Doctor. But since Osgood is long dead, how is that even possible? The Zygon Invasion and the Zygon Inversion. This story was kind of a headache for me. I found this one hard to digest, and I was speaking to a couple of my good friends and subscribers, Nick Payne and Sam Harrison, whilst kind of like Dark Water and Death in Heaven, really liked the first part, not so keen on the second part. Oh, why Moffat? What is it with Moffat and two-parters? Okay, this story has a lot of great things in it. So the first part, I think, is the better episode, and I think really sets up the story very well. The Zygons are pretty terrifying. The moments of horror that we see when a man is turning into a Zygon is pretty horrific. And the location of New Mexico is stunning, and the lighting for this story is incredible. This story is very cinematic, and if you were to watch this in like a cinema screen, it would be very atmospheric, and I think for nothing else, you do have that aspect to enjoy. There are also some very poignant moments. There's a moment when one of the soldiers is having a conversation with a woman who he thinks is his mother, but might potentially be the Zygon version of his mother, and that's a very emotional scene. He's pointing a gun at her. His commanding officer is saying to him, you need to shoot her. She's not real. She's not your mother. But of course, he doesn't know, does he? So it's quite an intense moment, and that was really gripping to watch. And when the story does build to the climax in the second episode, the Doctor does have an incredible speech about war and the Time War, and about how many screams he heard, and it's just a very dramatic speech. And this is one of the moments when I feel this is why they cast Peter Capaldi as the Doctor, because he knows how to cut to the roots of the drama and the emotional core of this character, how the Doctor is so tortured and damaged from this war. Yes, we've heard similar things before in other episodes, but I really like the way Capaldi delivered this, albeit there is some comedy that happens beforehand, and we do get a taste of Capaldi's American accent, which is really good. And I think the cliffhanger of part 1 ends really, really well when the Zygon version of Clara, known as Bonnie, has a bazooka and is about to fire at an aeroplane. It's a really great moment of tension. But to me, the second episode really lets this story down. While I had fun with this story, and it's certainly entertaining, and the Zygons look terrific, and their makeup is as good as it will ever be, and they're very threatening. The voices are perfect. The writing gets so muddled and so flipping confusing that I almost lost track of what the story was even about. I had to read the wiki page after I watched it just to make sure I'd understood everything. So they're looking for these things called the boxes, and they're in the Black Archives, and then the whole thing builds to a scene between Kate Stewart and Bonnie, who are about to make a choice as to which box to open, and whichever choice they make, someone will suffer. Essentially, either humanity or the Zygons will suffer. So I see what they were trying to do with this story. They were trying to build it to a dramatic point where they wanted to make a difficult choice for the characters. But in the end, the justification behind this was very confused. Because I started to think, why are the Zygons doing what they're doing? Why are they here trying to take over the Earth? And essentially the story kind of cancels itself out. You know, Bonnie is constantly asked, why are you doing this? What is the purpose of this? And she's like, just because I want to start a war. That's not good enough. I understand that this could potentially have been an allegory or a commentary on wars starting for no reason, and by God, we have wars in this world that have started for no reason. But it didn't work for the story for me, because it reduced any impact that could have been amazing for this story. It makes Bonnie come across as a really petulant child, just wanting to do things for the sake of doing it. You see what I mean? You need some motivation to sort of sell the impact, and there was just no impact for me. But was I entertained by the story? Yes, I was entertained by it. It was thrilling, it was fun, very well acted. I really liked seeing Osgood come back. I think Ingrid Oliver has done well with that character, even though she is a bit of a super fangirl of the Doctor. And there's some nice callbacks to other Doctors with her costume. And there's even a William Hartnell reference in there somewhere. because before she was kind of a nothing character, so it's kind of nice to have her back in, having a more prominent role in this story. And the cast are absolutely terrific. I think Jenna Coleman is very good in this one. I think this might be one of my favorite performances from her. There's a scene where she has to play against herself, where the real Clara has been captured and is in this kind of dreamlike state where she's in a bedroom or a living room with a TV, and she's talking to the Zygon Clara, and they have the same pulse, so she can check and see if she's lying or not. I thought that was a really good scene, and that was a really good way to kind of set up the Black Archive scene, and I think it gave Jenna some really good dramatic weight to play with, because obviously she's playing two characters, and I think she did it rather well. And Clara was far less controlling and sassy and overconfident as she has been in some of the other episodes, so the writing for Clara was a lot better in this episode. Peter Capaldi is great in this story. I really like his speech that he says about the Time War, but throughout the story, when he goes dramatic, like I said, his dramatic moments are perfect, and when he's squaring up against the Zygons, it's gripping. It's gripping stuff. I just hate the cringy comedy. I really hate it. There's that scene where he goes up to the policeman and he says, "Oh, I'm Dr. Disco," or something like that. It's like, this humor is not right. They have not pitched the comedy right for Peter Capaldi, and it's just such a shame, because it feels like in some ways a lot of this is written for Matt Smith, and Matt Smith could pull this off because his Doctor was more of a goofball, but Capaldi's comedy is so awkward and stilted, it makes it kind of uncomfortable to watch sometimes. And I know it's not Capaldi's fault, it's the writing. They're trying to make him funny so that he doesn't become boring. I understand that, and I'm not saying he should be devoid of humor or light relief, but even the scene when he's playing Amazing Grace on the electric guitar, it doesn't do much for me. In some ways, I think Capaldi does so well going down the darker, more dramatic side, that he's kind of found a comfort zone in that, and I don't think his comedy has been able to be pitched right, and I just think maybe they should have quit while they were ahead in that regard. It's worth mentioning Gemma Redgrave, who comes back as Kate. I think the last time we saw her was Dark Water and Death in Heaven, although she was in the previous Zygon story, so it does make sense for her to come back. And obviously the previous story was the 50th anniversary Day of the Doctor, which they do recap at the beginning. So this in some ways is kind of a sequel to the Day of the Doctor in some regard. And the soldier who I mentioned earlier, his name is Hitchley. Like I said, that scene was brilliantly written, very dramatic stuff. And again, going to New Mexico, so refreshing. Something completely different, and it shows that they're trying to take this seriously and go for a more cinematic approach, which I love. And Murray Gold's music is decent as well, and serves the story very, very well. So overall, this is a decent story. It's very fun, it's really entertaining, it romps along, but the writing in that second episode is so confusing. It's like they're trying to drop too much information all at once, and then, like I said, it cancels itself out because the plot then becomes meaningless. And so without stake, you needed a stronger motivation for the Zygons rather than just wanting to start a war just because. That's not enough for me. So my final rating for this story is going to be a 7 out of 10. It's decent enough, it's good fun, and I enjoyed it, but I think it could have been a lot better. But of course, the next story, oh boy, that's going to be an interesting one. The next story is going to be Sleep No More. So yeah, be prepared for that one, folks. That one's going to be tough. So thank you very much all for watching. What do you think of this story? Please comment down below, let me know, and stay tuned for next time when I review Sleep No More. So until then, I'm Pajak's Perspective. See ya. Bye for now.